Dottie West was a country music legend, adored for her soulful voice and heartfelt lyrics. But beyond the spotlight, a devastating reality was unfolding, one filled with turmoil, loss, and an ending no one saw coming. Today, we're diving deep into the struggles and secrets that shaped her life and led to her tragic fate. It all began in a quiet town. Dorothy Marie Marsh was born in Frog Pond, Tennessee, a tiny community nestled about 64 miles northeast of Nashville in Macon County. She was the eldest of 10 children, born to Paulina Arthur Marsh, formerly Jones, and William Hollis Marsh. Hollis was a talented musician, mastering both the guitar and fiddle, while Paulina kept their home running, juggling multiple jobs to support their ever-growing family. But behind closed doors, a darker reality loomed. Hollis battled a relentless alcohol addiction, making it nearly impossible for him to hold a steady job. His unpredictable moods often turned harsh, leaving his family to bear the brunt of his struggles. The Marsh family lived in constant hardship, struggling to afford even the basics. Food was scarce, and their homes were often in shambles. At one point, Paulina's relatives tried to build them a new house, a fresh start. But before it could be completed, Hollis destroyed it in a fit of rage. Even World War II couldn't straighten him out. Though drafted, he was discharged after just 3 months, returning home to a life of instability. For a brief moment, the Marsh family caught a break. Military allotment checks started coming in, giving them a rare taste of financial relief. With this money, they were finally able to build their home. Paulina also landed a job at a tree nursery, doing everything she could to provide for her children. As the eldest, Dorothy carried a heavy burden, stepping up to care for her younger siblings while her mother worked. But that wasn't all. She and her siblings spent long hours in nearby fields, picking fruits and vegetables just to keep food on the table. At just 12 years old, Dorothy managed to raise enough money at a school event to buy her very first guitar, a moment that would shape the rest of her life. As a teenager, she attended Central High School in McMinnville, Tennessee, trying to balance moments of normalcy with the chaos at home. But her father's struggles with alcohol never let up. His unpredictable temper continued to haunt the family, leading to frightening outbursts that shattered any sense of peace. Dorothy and her siblings lived in constant fear, never knowing when Hollis's temper would explode. But for Dorothy, the nightmare ran even deeper. Starting at just 11 years old, she endured unspeakable actions from her father, something she was too terrified to tell anyone. The weight of these horrifying experiences took a devastating toll. By the time she was 15, the trauma led to a heartbreaking miscarriage. At 17, Hollis got a job at the Ford Motor Company in Detroit, Michigan, and dropped a bombshell. He planned to pull Dorothy out of school and take her with him. The thought of leaving everything behind and being trapped with him was too much to bear. Desperate, Dorothy confided in her teachers, finally revealing the dark truth. This time, someone listened. Authorities stepped in, and Hollis was arrested on charges related to his disturbing actions against the family. After Hollis's arrest, Dorothy was taken in by the county sheriff for several weeks, while her mother scrambled to relocate the rest of the family to a small apartment in McMinnville. When the time came, Dorothy bravely testified in court, ensuring her father's conviction. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison, where he remained until his death in 1967. With that dark chapter behind her, Dorothy moved back in with her mother. Life wasn't easy. Paulina relied on welfare to keep them afloat and worked long shifts as a waitress at a local diner. Dorothy pitched in too, helping wherever she could. Over time, Paulina managed to move the family into a real home and even fulfilled a dream. She opened her own restaurant in McMinnville. During this time, Dorothy decided to reinvent herself. She started going by the name Dottie and threw herself into the one thing that had always been her escape: music. She played guitar and sang in a high school band called the Coonskins, setting the stage for a future that would take her far beyond McMinnville. The band performed at local events, square dances, picnics, and anywhere they could share their music. Dottie was determined to make something of herself, and after graduating high school, an unexpected opportunity came her way. A local businessman saw her talent and helped her secure a music scholarship to attend Tennessee Polytechnic Institute. On her very first day, fate stepped in. She met Bill West, a fellow student and steel guitar player. Sparks flew, and before long, the two were inseparable. Eventually, they married, and with that, Dottie West, the name that would soon take country music by storm, was born. So, how did Dottie West rise from small-town Tennessee to country music stardom? Let's dive into her incredible journey. Dottie's rise to stardom. In 1956, the West family packed up and moved to Cleveland, Ohio, chasing new opportunities. Bill landed a job at a steel plant, while Dottie struck gold, securing a 5-year gig on the regional country music TV show Landmark Jamboree. On the show, she joined forces with Kathy D, forming a dynamic duo known as the K-Dots. This show was a hotspot for country music legends, regularly featuring stars like the Carter sisters, artists Dottie would one day collaborate with. But her sights were set on something bigger. She dreamed of making it in the mainstream country music scene. Determined, she and her family made weekend trips to Nashville, Tennessee, chasing every opportunity to land a record deal. Then came 1959, a pivotal year. Dottie made the rounds at every record label in Nashville, hoping for her big break, but every door seemed to slam shut. Disheartened, the family prepared to drive back to Cleveland until fate intervened. As they were leaving, they spotted the office of Starday Records. Dottie saw one last shot and took it. She walked in, auditioned for Don Pierce, and, just like that, she was signed on the spot. Just 1 week later, Dottie took a bold leap of faith. She spent $511 of her hard-earned savings to record her debut single, An Angel on Paper. While the song and her early releases didn't skyrocket to fame, An Angel on Paper managed to get some airplay in Nashville, catching the right ears. One of those ears belonged to O.T. Devine from the Grand Ole Opry. He saw something special in Dottie and extended an invitation that would change everything. Her debut performance on the legendary Opry stage in 1960. That same year, she performed multiple times at the Opry while carefully saving every penny for her family's big move to Nashville. Then, in 1961, after scraping together nearly $1,000, the West family finally made the move. At first, they stayed with Bill's relatives before settling into a modest home in West Nashville. Determined to build her career, Dottie teamed up with booking agent Lucky Muller, who wasted no time organizing her first-ever tours and performances across the country, bringing her one step closer to country music stardom. During this time, Dottie and her husband found themselves surrounded by some of country music's most promising songwriting legends: Hank Cochran, Willie Nelson, Roger Miller, Red Lane, and Justin Tubb. These rising stars frequently gathered at the West family home, where Dottie would cook for them in exchange for a first-hand education in songwriting. Amid these connections, Dottie formed a deep bond with Patsy Cline. The two became close friends, and Patsy often invited Dottie and her family to join her on tour, offering them valuable work opportunities in the industry. Then, in July 1962, Dottie took a huge leap forward. She signed with Atlantic Records, making history as the label's first-ever country artist. But despite this milestone, Atlantic struggled to launch her career, much like her previous label, Starday Records. However, Dottie's songwriting was beginning to turn heads. One of her early compositions, Is This Me, was recorded as a demo with the help of steel guitarist Pete Drake, and that demo landed in the hands of Jim Reeves, setting the stage for what came next. Jim Reeves recorded Is This Me, and the song became a hit in the early 1960s. Blown away by Dottie's raw talent, Reeves personally introduced her to Chet Atkins at RCA Victor, a connection that changed everything. Not long after, Dottie officially signed with RCA, marking the true beginning of her country music breakthrough. In 1963, she released her first RCA singles, Touch Me and Let Me Off at the Corner. While the latter didn't skyrocket to fame, it landed on the U.S. country chart, peaking at number 29, her first ever charting song, but the real magic came next. Her duet with Jim Reeves, Love Is No Excuse, stormed into the top 10. Then, in 1964, Dottie released the song that would cement her as a country music powerhouse, Here Comes My Baby, a song she co-wrote with her husband. The track shot into the top 10 of the U.S. country chart, turning Dottie into a star overnight. This massive success earned her a historic achievement. She became the first female country artist to win a Grammy Award. Not only that, but she also secured a coveted spot at the Grand Ole Opry. Her debut studio album, Here Comes My Baby, 1965, produced by Chet Atkins, featured 5 of her original songs and climbed to number 12 on the U.S. Country Albums chart. Her follow-up album, Dottie West Sings, saw similar success, solidifying her place in the industry. During this time, several of her singles, including Didn't I and Getting Married Has Made Us Strangers, also landed in the top 40, proving that Dottie West was here to stay. Dottie quickly became known for her deeply emotional vocal delivery and heartfelt lyrics, earning praise from both critics and fans alike. Her 1966 album, Suffer Time, explored themes of heartbreak and troubled relationships, resonating deeply with listeners. The album soared to number 1, 3 on the U.S. country chart, while its standout single, Would You Hold It Against Me, broke into the top 5. With Chet Atkins still at the helm as her producer, Dottie continued to build momentum. In 1967, she released 3 albums. With All My Heart and Soul, Dottie West Sings Sacred Ballads, and I'll Help You Forget Her. These projects featured fan-favorite tracks like Paper Mansions and Like a Fool, further solidifying her reputation as one of country music's most authentic voices. As her fame skyrocketed, Dottie took her show on the road. She formed her very own touring band, the Heartaches, which featured her husband on steel guitar alongside a team of top-tier musicians. The group traveled relentlessly across the U.S. and Canada, playing state fairs, concert halls, and country music hotspots. Dottie's album, The Sound of Country Music, paid tribute to both her and the Heartaches, acknowledging their impact on her growing success. Around this time, she also stepped into the world of film, making appearances in 2 country music-themed movies, Second Fiddle to a Steel Guitar and There's a Still on the Hill. 1968 was a huge year for Dottie West. RCA released 3 studio albums, What I'm Cut Out to Be, Country Girl, and Feminine Fancy. All 3 made their mark on the U.S. Country Albums chart, proving that Dottie was a force to be reckoned with. The singles Country Girl and Reno climbed into the top 20 in the U.S. and even broke into the top 10 in Canada. As her career soared, Dottie was chosen to collaborate with some of country music's top male artists. Her first major duet partnership was with Don Gibson, resulting in multiple hit recordings featured on their 1969 album, Dottie and Don. This album also marked a significant turning point, her final collaboration with legendary producer Chet Atkins. Their first duet, Rings of Gold, became an instant smash. It skyrocketed to number 1, 2 on the U.S. country chart, and even claimed the number 1 spot in Canada. The momentum continued with follow-up hits like Sweet Memories, a song later recorded by Willie Nelson, and There's a Story Goin' Round, which landed in the U.S. top 10. Dottie kept the duet magic going in 1971 when she teamed up with Jimmy Dean for the song Slowly, which climbed into the U.S. country top 30. Their collaboration extended beyond the studio. They recorded a full album together, Country Boy and Country Girl, and performed electrifying duets at the Landmark and Golden Nugget hotels in Las Vegas. While Dottie's duets were making waves, she never stopped releasing powerful solo music. Between 1970 and 1972, RCA Victor dropped a string of singles, including Clinging to My Baby's Hand, Careless Hands, Lonely Is, and I'm Only a Woman. Among them, Forever Yours, 1970, stood out. It climbed a number 21 on the U.S. country chart, and its accompanying studio album broke into the top 40. By the early 1970s, critics began to notice a deeper intensity in Dottie's voice. Analysts described her evolving style as carrying a moaning quality, adding raw emotional depth to her performances. One of the most striking examples was her 1971 single, 6 Weeks Every Summer, Christmas Every Other Year. The song, which tackled the heartbreaking reality of a single mother's struggles, was praised for its substance and passion, so much so that Dottie reportedly broke down in tears during the recording session. This period also brought another standout track, If It's All Right With You, which landed in the US Country Top 30. The song later appeared on her 1975 studio album, featuring her new husband, Byron Metcalf, on the cover, marking yet another turning point in both her career and personal life. Financial struggles and extravagant spending. In her later years, Dottie West became known not just for her music, but for her lavish spending habits. She had a taste for luxury, and her shopping sprees were nothing short of legendary. Some stores would even stay open past midnight just to cater to her private shopping sessions. Dottie openly admitted that her financial choices weren't always the wisest, but she loved the thrill of spending big. By the 1980s, her income fluctuated between $1 million and $2 million annually, and she wasn't shy about living large. She purchased a massive colonial mansion in Williamson County, Tennessee, filled with extravagant features, including a private bowling alley, designer-packed closets, and even a fully furnished nursery for her 2 grandchildren. But the most talked-about feature? A mirror installed on the ceiling above her master bed, a testament to her larger-than-life persona. However, behind the glamour, financial troubles were mounting. By August 1990, Dottie was in serious debt, filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after accumulating $1 million owed to the IRS. As things worsened, she switched to Chapter 7, which allowed her to liquidate her assets. But the troubles didn't stop there. Her own management company sued her for $130,000, claiming she had violated her contract. Dottie's financial troubles only deepened as lawsuits piled up. Her former manager, Michael Brokaw, claimed he was entitled to 15% of her earnings and sued her for $110,295. Then, in September 1990, things took a devastating turn. The First American National Bank officially seized her colonial mansion, which had originally been valued at $800,000. To make matters worse, her Chevrolet Corvette was repossessed, leaving her without transportation, until Kenny Rogers stepped in and loaned her a car to help her get around. With nowhere else to go, Dottie moved into the Wessex Towers condominiums in Nashville, trying to rebuild her life. But just when she thought things couldn't get worse, a shocking revelation surfaced. An anonymous tip led bankruptcy trustee John McLemore to uncover that Dottie had hidden personal valuables in a storage unit, attempting to shield them from the IRS. In April 1991, officials discovered porcelain pieces and a guitar tucked away in the unit, another blow to her already crumbling finances. By June 1991, the IRS took drastic action, organizing a public auction to sell off Dottie's belongings. Some loyal fans purchased items and returned them to her out of love, but other prized possessions, including her baby grand piano and 1976 Cadillac Fleetwood, were auctioned off for good. Despite this, Dottie's financial struggles persisted, and the road ahead remained uncertain. From an early age, Dottie West was surrounded by the sounds of country music. Her father often played the fiddle, filling their home with Jimmie Rodgers tunes, while her mother joined in with harmonizing melodies. As one of the few families with a radio, their home became a Saturday night tradition, a place where neighbors gathered to listen to the Grand Ole Opry together. West's earliest influences included the Carter family and the Carter sisters. She later spoke highly of Anita Carter's pure, sweet voice, but it was Mother Maybelle Carter who left the biggest impression. Dottie deeply admired Maybelle's ability to balance her career and family, a quality that would shape Dottie's own journey in country music. However, no artist impacted her more than Patsy Cline, a woman who became both her greatest musical influence and a treasured mentor. Klein took a genuine interest in Dottie's career, sharing invaluable advice on stage presence, vocal technique, and how to captivate an audience. Dottie even had the rare opportunity to sit in on Klein's recording sessions, soaking in every detail of her performance style. One moment in particular stayed with her forever, hearing one of Klein's playbacks for the first time. The raw emotion in her voice struck Dottie so deeply that it changed the way she approached music forever. Dottie West and Patsy Cline occasionally toured together, sharing unforgettable performances, including what would become Klein's final show in March 1963. That night, Dottie urged Klein to drive back to Nashville with her, worried about the dangerous weather. But Klein chose to fly instead, a decision that led to the tragic plane crash that took her life. The loss shattered Dottie. She cherished a scrapbook Klein had gifted her, holding on to it for the rest of her life. Later, she would write the foreword for Klein's official biography, ensuring her dear friend's legacy lived on. Dottie wasn't just a star, she was a trailblazer. She became one of the first country artists to record songs written by female songwriters, paving the way for women in the industry. Her albums featured talented writers like Jessie Coulter, Sandy Mason, and Jeannie Seeley. In fact, Dottie and Jeannie formed a strong bond after meeting at the Palomino Club in Los Angeles, a friendship that would change Jeannie's life. Inspired by Dottie, Seeley made the bold move to Nashville, setting the stage for her own success. Dottie also had an eye for rising talent. At just 17 years old, she discovered Steve Wariner, inviting him on stage for a harmony performance that marked the start of his career. Wariner later toured with Dottie and even lived in her Nashville home for years while finding his footing in the industry. And she didn't stop there. Larry Gatlin owes much of his career to Dottie's generosity. She recorded his songs, encouraged him to move to Nashville, and even bought him a plane ticket to get there. Her belief in young artists left a lasting impact on country music, proving that her influence stretched far beyond her own success. Both Steve Wariner and Larry Gatlin went on to become major names in country music, thanks in part to Dottie West's belief in their talent. Relationships and marriages. Now let's shift gears. Dottie's career may have been filled with triumphs, but what about her personal life? Was it just as smooth? Keep watching, because the truth is far more complicated. Dottie walked down the aisle 3 times in her life, but each marriage ended in divorce. Her first husband was Bill West, a steel guitarist she met on her very first day at Tennessee Tech in 1953. Their love story moved fast. They tied the knot during her sophomore year, and their romance was even immortalized in their college yearbook that same year. Bill wasn't just her husband, he was also her creative partner, co-writing many of her early hits and later joining her touring band. During their early Nashville days, the couple lived in a charming pink cottage on the west side of the city, but their fairy tale home was short-lived. In the 1960s, a fire completely destroyed it, forcing them to move to a new house in Green Hills. Then came 1972, the year their marriage came crashing down. Dottie made a shocking discovery. Bill had been unfaithful. Heartbroken, she made the painful decision to end their nearly 2-decade marriage. Bill West passed away in 2013, but his legacy lived on through the family he and Dottie built together. By 1958, the couple had welcomed 4 children, Morris, Carrie, and Shelley, followed by their youngest, Dale, born in 1962. Music ran deep in the West family, and it wasn't long before the children found their own paths in the industry. Carrie became an audio engineer working on Ronnie Millsap's shows. Mo pursued songwriting and guitar, performing with the rock band Thunder. Shelley soared to country music stardom in the 1980s, topping the U.S. country charts as both a solo artist and in a duet with David Frizzell. A love for younger men. After her split from Bill, Dottie married again in 1972, this time to Byron Metcalf, her band's drummer, who was 14 years younger than her. At their wedding, Dottie made headlines when she altered the traditional vow, saying, "As long as love shall last," instead of "till death do us part." She was always open about her attraction to younger men, but by 1980 their relationship had fallen apart. Dottie filed for divorce, citing Byron's drinking and infidelity. The split was finalized in 1981, with Dottie agreeing to pay him $55,000, plus an additional $10,000 for legal fees. Then in 1983, she married for the third time, this time to Al Winters, a sound engineer who was 23 years younger. But this marriage fared no better. By 1988, Dottie filed for divorce once again, citing irreconcilable differences and cruel treatment. Their divorce was finalized shortly thereafter, closing yet another chapter in her tumultuous love life. Later years and the road to tragedy. So what led to Dottie West's heartbreaking end? What caused her tragic death? Let's dive into her final years to uncover the events that changed everything. In 1984, Dottie signed a 5-year recording deal with Permian Records, hoping to reignite her career. She partnered with producer Jerry Crutchfield to create her debut album for the label, Just Dottie. Critics had mixed reactions. Billboard described it as both sorrowful and sassy, while the Tennessean praised its powerful women-centered lyrics. The album featured her final U.S. charting country hits, including What's Good for the Goose, Is Good for the Gander, Let Love Come Looking for You, and We Know Better Now. She also reunited with Kenny Rogers for the duet Together Again from his Duets compilation, a hit that landed in the U.S. Country Top 20 in 1984. But trouble wasn't far behind. By 1986, Permian Records shut down, leaving Dottie without a label. That same year, she made an unexpected career move. Starring in the low-budget science fiction thriller The Aurora Encounter, she played Irene Rutherford, a widow who comes face-to-face with extraterrestrial visitors. The film didn't impress critics, and it certainly didn't revive her career. As the 1980s wore on, Dottie's fame began to fade. Concert appearances dwindled, and the once-beloved country icon found herself struggling to hold on to the success she had worked so hard to build. Dottie West remained active in the country music scene, even as challenges mounted. She occasionally stepped in as Kenny Rogers' duet partner whenever other artists were unavailable. By 1989, she had found a new musical partnership, this time with her daughter, Shelley West, who was also making waves in the country music industry. But 1990 brought significant hardships. Dottie filed for bankruptcy, ending up in a financial crisis that wiped out much of what she had built. She also finalized her divorce from her third husband, Alan Winters, marking yet another painful chapter in her personal life. Despite these struggles, Dottie refused to give up. She remained dedicated to her career, with her booking agents locking in 80 concert dates for the year. She was a regular on the Nashville network and continued to light up the stage at the Grand Ole Opry, proving that her passion for music never wavered. In the months before her death, Dottie had big plans. She was preparing a duet album with Tanya Tucker and Tammy Wynette, and even working on her autobiography. But fate had other plans. In July 1991, she lost control of her Chevrolet Camaro, crashing into a concrete wall. She was cited for careless driving and for not wearing a seatbelt, but she survived. Then, just a month later, tragedy struck again, this time with devastating consequences. On August 30th, 1991, while rushing to a Grand Ole Opry performance, Dottie's car stalled. In a desperate attempt to make it to the Grand Ole Opry on time, Dottie flagged down her neighbor, George Thaxton, who kindly offered to drive her. But what should have been a simple ride turned into a nightmare. As Thaxton attempted to take the exit ramp for Opryland Highway, he lost control of the vehicle. The car went airborne, crashing violently into an embankment. Investigations later revealed that Thaxton had been speeding, driving at 55 miles per hour on a ramp with a posted 25 miles per hour speed limit. Thaxton suffered critical injuries but survived. He later faced reckless endangerment charges, to which he entered a no-contest plea. His sentence? 11 months of probation and mandatory participation in an alcohol recovery program. At first, Dottie appeared unharmed, even joking at the scene. But once at the hospital, doctors made a horrifying discovery. She had a ruptured spleen and a lacerated liver. Even worse, there were fears she might be paralyzed. Rushed into emergency surgery at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, she endured a grueling 90-minute procedure before being placed in intensive care. A second surgery followed, but she had lost a massive amount of blood, and doctors grew increasingly fearful for her survival. Then, on September 4th, 1991, as they prepared her for yet another operation, Dottie West's heart suddenly stopped. At 4 a.m. on September 4th, 1991, despite desperate efforts to revive her, Dottie West could not be saved. She was just 58 years old. Her funeral was held on September 7, 1991 at Christ Church in Nashville, where loved ones, fans, and country music legends gathered to say their final goodbyes. Her granddaughters paid tribute with an original song, while Steve Werner delivered a touching performance of Amazing Grace. The most emotional moment came when Kenny Rogers took the podium, delivering a heartfelt eulogy that left many in tears. As people reminisced about her soul-stirring performances and unshakable spirit, Dottie West was laid to rest at Mount View Cemetery in her hometown of McMinnville, Tennessee. Musical legacy and influence. Dottie West is remembered as a trailblazer, a woman who shattered barriers and elevated the role of female country artists. Robert K. Oerman placed her among the greats, comparing her legacy to icons like Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, and Tammy Wynette. He described these women as American icons, whose music captured the struggles of heartbreak, resilience, and triumph, all while rising from poverty to stardom. Jason Ankeny of AllMusic highlighted how Dottie's fight for identity and respect in the male-dominated country music industry paved the way for future generations of female artists. Her determination allowed women to assert control over their careers, setting a new standard in the business. Robert Hilburn of the Los Angeles Times noted that, in the mid-1960s, West was part of a select group of women, including Loretta Lynn, who proved that female artists could thrive in the rough honky-tonk venues traditionally dominated by men. Dottie West wasn't just a country star. She was a fighter, a pioneer, and a legend whose impact on country music will never fade. Dottie West is also remembered for her remarkable ability to reinvent herself, proving that a woman's career in country music didn't have to fade with age. Julie Thankey of The Tennessean highlighted how West transformed her image over the years, evolving from the wholesome, gingham-clad girl next door to a glamorous, chart-topping country star with undeniable stage presence. Mary A. Buffwack and Robert K. Oerman praised her stunning comeback in her 40s when she boldly embraced a more daring, high-fashion look, dazzling audiences with eye-catching costumes and a fresh, confident energy. Jason Ankeny credited her midlife resurgence to shifting cultural trends, noting that her career soared during the intimate revolution. A defining moment came with her 1973 crossover hit Country Sunshine, a song originally created for Coca-Cola, which became a massive commercial success. During this period, Dottie's music took on a more provocative edge, appealing to new audiences, though some traditional country fans pushed back against her evolving style. But she wasn't one to conform. She kept pushing boundaries, proving that reinvention was key to longevity in the industry. Dottie's extraordinary life and career were later immortalized in the 1995 CBS television movie Big Dreams and Broken Hearts, the Dottie West story, bringing her triumphs and struggles to the screen for a whole new generation to discover. In the 1995 CBS television movie, Big Dreams and Broken Hearts, the Dottie West story, actress Michelle Lee stepped into the role of Dottie, fully immersing herself in the country star's extraordinary life. To bring authenticity to the role, Lee wore many of Dottie's original stage outfits and conducted extensive research to capture her essence. The film featured special appearances by country legends like Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, and Kenny Rogers, making it a true celebration of Dottie's legacy. The Seattle Times praised Lee's vocal performances, calling her reenactment of Dottie's legendary stage acts some of the film's most powerful moments. Meanwhile, Variety applauded director Bill D'Elia, crediting him with guiding the cast to deliver an authentic and heartfelt narrative, something many biopics fail to achieve. Dottie's influence wasn't forgotten. In 1999, her legacy was reignited when Jo Dee Messina recorded a cover of Lesson in Leavin', a song that originally became a Dottie West classic. Messina, a devoted fan, was deeply inspired after watching Big Dreams and Broken Hearts and felt compelled to honor Dottie's memory. She admired Dottie's fiery spirit, describing her as a passionate, resilient woman who had an unbreakable bond with her fans. In 2002, Dottie's contributions to country music were formally recognized when she was named one of CMT's 40 Greatest Women of Country Music in a special broadcast. And in 2010, her hometown of McMinnville, Tennessee, honored her in a historic tribute, renaming Highway 56 as the Dottie West Memorial Highway, ensuring that her name and legacy will never be forgotten. A movement to induct Dottie West into the Country Music Hall of Fame gained momentum over the years, led by Jeannie Seely and Ron Harmon. In 2012, Harmon took action, launching a Facebook campaign titled "Dottie West Needs Inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame." The campaign exploded in popularity, drawing over 15,000 passionate supporters who believed Dottie deserved her place among country music's legends. In 2014, country star Steve Wariner added his voice to the cause. He penned an op-ed in Billboard, making a compelling case for Dottie's long-overdue recognition. Wariner called her a true trailblazer, crediting her with paving the way for modern female country artists and shaping the industry in ways that still resonate today. Then, in March 2018, the long-awaited news finally arrived. Dottie West was officially selected for induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame. The ceremony took place in October 2018, ensuring that her legacy, influence, and unbreakable spirit would be forever enshrined in country music history. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.